Hey, welcome to one of the fastest growing sports YouTube channels out there, Gold and Blue Dude. And today we're going to talk about the FPI as it relates to the SEC East. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Gold and Blue Dude. Hey, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I do college football videos every single day. That's what I do. Hey guys, don't forget to check out my good friends at TriStateWoodSketch.com. They have a lot of shapes and sizes you can choose from, so I'm sure you'll find something you like. All you have to do is send them your picture that you want on that piece of wood, and he'll make it happen. Right now, he's running a great sale. If you go over to TriStateWoodSketch.com and mention that Gold and Blue Dude sent you, he'll give you buy one, get one free. Yesterday, I made a video about the FPI and how it relates to West Virginia. Today, I decided to go a little bit more broad. I'm going to talk about the FPI as it relates to the SEC East. How they see the SEC East playing out. I explained how the FPI worked yesterday, but if you haven't seen that video, I'm going to briefly explain it again. Basically, it's a combination of predicting the value of the offense, defense, and special teams of each team, what they did last year, factor in extra days of rest, distance traveled for away games, data from the last 4 seasons, returning coach or new coach, and of course, their recruiting class. Today, I'm going to go through the FPI for each game for the 4 teams that are considered to be the biggest contenders in the SEC East. I'm talking about Missouri, Kentucky, Florida, and Georgia. First, we'll do Georgia. Their first game against Clemson in Charlotte. The FPI gives Georgia a 28.7% chance of winning. So technically, they're calling for a loss. I've already predicted that Georgia would lose this game, but 28.7%, I believe they have a bigger shot of beating Clemson than that. I would put it at least in the 40s. Next game, a home game against UAB. 93.9% chance of winning. That's fair. And UAB is predicted to win the West Division of Conference USA. So that's a better win than you think. Next game, a home game against South Carolina, 93.1%. I think UAB is the better team than South Carolina, and they're giving Georgia a better chance of beating UAB. The only thing that I could think of that would make sense is South Carolina-Georgia rivalry. And 2 years ago, South Carolina did go into Georgia and beat them. Next up, at Vanderbilt, 95.7%. Yeah, that makes sense. A home game against Arkansas, 87.5%. I'm okay with that, but I'm going to compare it to another game here in just a minute. Next up, at Auburn, 63.2%. I don't think Auburn's going to be good this year. I think they're going to be in the bottom of the SEC West. I know Georgia has had nightmares in Jordan Hare, but I think that percentage should at least be in the 70s. Then the home game against Kentucky, 87.8%. And that's the game that I wanted to compare Arkansas with. They're giving Georgia a better chance of beating Kentucky than Arkansas. I think Kentucky's going to be a better team than Arkansas. It's going to be later in the year. I know it's only by 0.3%, but that should definitely be flipped around. Kentucky's going to be a much tougher team than Arkansas. And that's not disrespecting Arkansas. They are up and coming. After that, they get Florida in Jacksonville, 62.4%. I think that should be a little higher. I know it's a rivalry, but Florida lost a ton from last year's great offense. And no, Florida does not reload like Alabama and Clemson does. So they will drop off a little bit. I think that should be at least 75% for Georgia. Then the home game against Missouri, 89.9%. I'm okay with that. At Tennessee, 81.8%. Home against Charleston Southern, 99.8%. Pretty much a gimme win. Then at Georgia Tech, 85.1%. The only thing that I disagree there at the end is they're giving Georgia a better shot of beating Georgia Tech on the road than beating Tennessee on the road. Georgia Tech is going to be better than Tennessee this year. Tennessee is going to be a train wreck. It's only by around 4%, but still, that should be totally flipped. I don't agree with that. But all in all, the FPI has Georgia going 11-1, which is exactly what I have Georgia going as well. Next up, Kentucky. First game, the home game against UL Monroe, 96.6%. Yeah, I agree with that. UL Monroe is a terrible team. Then the home game against Missouri, 63%. Then the home game against Chattanooga, 98.4%. Road trip to South Carolina, 57.5%. I know that's on the road, but that's basically a coin flip, and I think Kentucky is a much better team than South Carolina. I know South Carolina will have the home field advantage, but I think that should be at least in the 60s. I'd say 65%. Next up, the home game against Florida, only 32.5%. I would raise that to a coin flip because I think Kentucky is actually better than Florida, and it is at home. But history is on Florida's side. That's the only thing that gives me hesitation. I'm predicting Kentucky to win that. In the home game against LSU, 43.9%. So they have a better chance of beating LSU than they do Florida by over 10%. I don't agree with that at all. I think Florida falls off and LSU is on the up and coming. If anything, I would flip that. Next game, the road trip to Georgia, 12.2%. Yikes. but I agree with it. Next up, at Mississippi State, 37%. That's just flat wrong. I would flip that game over to Kentucky and give them at least a 60%. Then the home game against Tennessee, 58.6%. No, this is not a coin flip game. Kentucky is going to hammer Tennessee. At Vanderbilt, 79%. Home against New Mexico State, 98.9%. And then at Louisville, 42.4%. That's just flat out wrong. Kentucky's going to be a much better team than Louisville. Louisville's not going to be good at all. Overall, the FPI has Kentucky going 8-4. I can't totally disagree with that. I think Kentucky could go 9-3 or 10-2, but 8-4 is not a stretch. Next up, we have Missouri. First game, Central Michigan at home, 79.5%. At Kentucky, 37%. I'm going to get back to that game here in just a minute for a comparison. Then Southeast Missouri, 97.5%. At Boston College, 40.4%. I guess home field advantage flips it in the favor of Boston College. They're going to be a good team. Home against Tennessee, 59.1%. That should be much higher. Missouri's the better team, and it's at home. Then they get home against North Texas, 84%. Home against Texas A&M, 20.5%. That should be a little bit higher. I'd say in the 30s. At Vanderbilt, 80.6%. At Georgia, 10.1%. Not disagreeing with that. The home game against South Carolina, 70.2%. They're giving Missouri almost a 20% chance higher of beating South Carolina at home than they do Tennessee at home. South Carolina is better than Tennessee this year. That should be flipped. Then the home game against Florida, 29.4%. That's way too low. I actually think Missouri's going to win that game. I would put it as a coin flip. And then at Arkansas, 36.1%. Again, I think Kentucky is going to be better than Arkansas, but they're giving them a better shot of going on the road and beating Kentucky and going on the road and beating Arkansas. I would flip that. So they have Missouri going 6-6. I disagree with that. I think Missouri gets to 8 wins. Next up, Florida. First game, a home game against FAU, 92.7%. I'm okay with that. At South Florida, 89.7%. A home game against Alabama, 24.8%. I'm actually okay with that, but I'm going to save it in comparison for another game. A home game against Tennessee, 83.8%. At Kentucky, 67.5%. Kentucky's going to be a good team. Wrong. Home against Vanderbilt, 96.3%. At LSU, 52.8%. So once again, they're giving Florida a much better chance of going on the road to beat Kentucky in a road trip to LSU. I think Kentucky will be better than LSU. So even if you do keep Florida the favorite, I would flip those two. But I have Florida losing both of those games. So I very much disagree with these percentages. The next game, the neutral game against Georgia in Jacksonville, 37.6%. So they're saying that Florida has a better chance of beating Georgia in a neutral site than they do beating Alabama at home. To me, that makes no sense. Number one, I think Georgia will be the better team. And number two, the Alabama game is at home. I have Florida losing to Alabama, but I think they would have a better chance of beating Alabama at home than Georgia at a neutral site. Next game, at South Carolina, 77.9%. Then the home game against Stanford, 99.4%. Then at Missouri, 70.6%. Guys, not only do I think the percentage is way off on this, I think Florida straight up loses this game on the road to a much improved Missouri. Fully disagree with the FPI here. And then finally, the home game against Florida State, 81.7%. So the FPI has Florida going 10-2 in 2021. Totally disagree. I think Florida's going to take a major step back. They could go 8-4, maybe 9-3. I have them going 7-5, but 10-2, no. It's not happening. That's not trash talking Florida. You just lost too much on offense. It's going to take a year or two to get back to where you were. And with one of the best offenses last year, you still ended up with 4 losses. Number one, I definitely don't trust your defense. And number two, you lost a lot on offense. So for first place in the SEC East, I have Georgia. So does the FPI. We agree on the record, 11-1. But for second place, I have Kentucky. I have them going either 9-3 or 10-2. The FPI has Florida in second place going 10-2. In third place, I actually have Missouri, 8-4. They have Kentucky going 8-4. And then in fourth place, I have Florida taking a big step back going 7-5. The FPI has Missouri in fourth place going 6-6. So yes, Golden Blue Dude and the FPI do disagree a lot when it comes to the SEC East. We'll see who comes the closest to being right whenever the season rolls around. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you on my next show.